Rachel Turner, and this is Bedtime Drinks. Feel free to have a drink. If you've made it till 9 o'clock at night and you are still awake, I applaud you. We are here to talk about confidence and anxiety in teenagers, which sort of feels like, you know, synonymous, doesn't it? Because it's hard being a teenager and a tweenager. It is a big wide world, and it can be hard to deal with all of the anxiety of community and friendships and comparison and media, and woo, it's a big deal. And how do we help our kids feel confident in the midst of all of that? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It's really good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little bit, but I am here, and I'm glad that you are here. So yeah, what we'll do normally is I'll chat for a little bit and share some thoughts that you can reject, accept, argue with, or dismiss. And then I'll pray for you, and then we'll answer any questions that may pop up, any comments that get thrown in. So please do feel free to type in questions, comments, experiences, wisdom, and participate in this sort of parenting for faith community that we are. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about. I've done a lot of thinking about this. When I wrote a book called "Parenting Children for Life of Confidence," and a lot of it was about teenagers and how we deal with peer pressure and all that stuff. Hi, Shanaz, it's great to see you. And how we deal with social media and stuff, and all of that is in this book. If you want to look at it, there's a whole book on confidence, and so I don't think I can summarize all of this into this, but I just wanted to give us a little bit of starting point, I guess, in how we begin to approach it, because I think sometimes it just feels overwhelming as parents to look at these precious people that we love who are drastically changing in terms of their bodies and their emotions and in terms of the situations that they're in, and they're having to navigate figuring out who they are and who they want to be, and what that looks like for them in the world. And that can be a big thing to try to walk alongside. And so I just wanted to bring some thoughts to you. The first thing that I think I wanted to bring to you was about the nature of confidence. There is something in us that wants confidence to be simple. And so we think, if my kid can just be confident in who they are, just be confident in themselves, then that would be the key to everything. That's the silver bullet. If my kid could just walk into a space and feel confident in themselves, then all of the things that I want them to have will happen. And my suggestion is that confidence is the fruit of all these little things that we can disciple in them, rather than the one thing that we try to get them to do and then everything else flows out of that. Because really wrapped up in the idea of if my kid was confident is all of the fruit that we want for our children. We want them to be confident so that they can not tear themselves down, so they can look themselves in the mirror and feel peaceful and content, rather than feel less than or anxious or hatred towards themselves, or upset that they're not perfect. We want our children to be confident so that they can engage with others in a way that allows them to be steady when they deal with social media and they deal with the world, and they deal with comments and they deal with what everyone tells them. That our kid can resist that, and they can do that and stand up for themselves and not change for others, and they can be themselves and not be embarrassed about what they love. And we want them to have all of that fruit. We want them to know who they are in God, so that they know deeply that they are loved and cherished, and we want all of that. But rather than just tell our kids they're perfect and they need to be themselves and then hope that fruit comes, what we can do is pick up all those individual bits and disciple them in that, because that actually is much more effective. Because just because you think you look great does not mean you're going to know how to stand up when somebody's coming at you, both barrels drawn, on trying to destroy your self-confidence. That's not the way. But what is the way is for them to have someone who walks alongside of them, who disciples them in how to deal with a world who tells you lies. That's something beautiful. And so for me, my suggestion would be that the first thing we need to do is begin to walk alongside our kids and say, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to walk alongside of you and cheer you on as you figure out what teen life looks like. Because teenagers are natural experimenters. They are into one thing and then they're into something else, and then they're going to try this approach with their friendships and then discover that that was a terrible way of doing friendships and then try something else. And they're natural experimenters, and we can overreact to an individual experiment instead of going, I trust that you are an experimenter and that on this journey you will learn and grow and have wisdom. And I desperately want you to find peace and contentment and a lack of anxiety as you encounter all the waves of the world. And I'm here to help you figure that out. And so when we do that, that can be a really helpful positioning for them. Because what do you want them to know? And as teenagers, I know sometimes we feel like they don't want to know from us. I guarantee you they do. But they learn in slightly different ways from us. But when we think, what do I actually need them to know? It's not, I want you to be confident in you. What do I actually want them to know? And what I could want them to know is that other people will always, well, not other people, but some people in the world will misunderstand you. And that doesn't mean that that is who you are. And so therefore, how do we deal when we feel misunderstood? And that is a huge lesson to learn. That's a massive lesson to learn, is how do we cope when we feel misunderstood? What do we do with those emotions? What do we do with God? How do we find the truth? How do we walk that out? That's a thing that you can walk alongside them in. You can use all the Parenting for Faith tools to say, when someone misunderstands me, I'm so angry, and I take that to God and I say, what did I do wrong? Or why do they insist on not seeing me correctly? Is that really me? And I ask God, what is the truth about me? And then I try to correct it, and then I try to correct it once, and if they're not open to it, then I just have to know that not everybody in this world is going to get me, and that may still poke at me, but I've got to learn how to take 3 breaths and walk away. And when you begin to think, okay, I'm going to walk alongside my kid in this, and I'm going to teach them the thing they need to know, then that helps them know what to do in that situation. And they need that kind of minuscule equipping. Mistakes are learning. You're going to make a lot of mistakes in your life. You're going to learn something from all of that. And that's the process. And so don't get upset when you make a mistake, because that's just part of figuring out how to fix it and be better next time. It can be frustrating. Yeah, you might want to make less mistakes, but if you try to cut out all mistakes, you'll end up cutting out a lot of your learning. So, I don't expect you to be perfect, do you? And you can have that conversation. What is the real truth that is underneath the anxiety? What is the real truth that's underneath the lack of confidence? And disciple that. And that will go so much farther. It usually tends to be around 3 general areas. If you notice your kids having a lack of confidence or struggling with anxiety, it usually is around 3 things. It's either around them not knowing the presence of God, the companionship of God in their lives, because in the Bible there's almost nothing. Well, I can say nothing. Every time that confidence is mentioned in the Bible, there's not one time that it says be confident in yourselves. It's always talking about you can be confident in God and who He is and what He's doing. And there is something about being able to put your heart rooted in something that will not change, that is really helpful and steadying and peaceful for particularly teenagers, because friends will change, teachers will change, I as a parent will be inconsistent, but the one thing that never changes is the love and presence of God in your kid's life. And that's one thing to disciple them in. So sometimes it's around who God is and where God is in this situation, and you get to disciple them in that. Sometimes it's around this middle thing of the fact that they're not perfect and that they're growing, and that every day you get to get up off the mat and get better at something and change something, and to be stronger today, or to have learned that thing, to be wiser today, to look back and go, a year ago I would have not known how to navigate year 7. Now I'm like, year 7's easy, look at year 8, and you look at how much you've grown and changed, and you've learned all of this through little mistakes and getting lost and shoved up against the wall, and you learned so much, and now look at you, think about all that you're learning right now that you don't even know and you're going to look back on. We all get to get up off the mat and grow. No matter what situation you're in, we can get up and take steps forward because you are made beautifully to learn and change. And I admire how you look at things and how you analyze things and all of this stuff. Oh, you're going to be great. And then the third thing tends to be around um, their power. So often teenagers feel powerless or helpless. And if they're experiencing a lack of confidence or if they're experiencing anxiety, often it's because they feel helpless. And it's our job to help them find their power, how to speak out about something, how to assess what lies are coming in and, respond to it or shut it down, how to deal with bullying or how to deal with the decision that they don't know what to do and that they actually have power in this, and to help them find their power and exercise that power. So it will tend to be around those three areas, but only you as a parent or carer or grandparent will be able to be like, actually, this is the thing they need to learn. And I'm going to create windows into that in my life to show them where I'm making mistakes in cherishing those things and how I deal with those emotions, to frame it for them, unwind the bits of misunderstanding about God that gets in the way. All of those tools that Parenting for Faith has that you can learn in the Parenting for Faith course from the book, those ways that we disciple kids in that are really, really helpful. Yes, that journeying alongside is really, really valuable for teenagers. My guess is that there will be a couple of questions around this, scenarios that you might want us to wrestle with together. So I'm going to jump to the questions a bit early, I guess. But I think sometimes it's helpful to really narrow down with teenagers. What things are you facing with your teenagers' lives? What, even in theory, even if you're not in it right now, to go, I'm worried about this in the future. What how do I deal with that? So pop in questions or comments or wisdom as we continue this conversation. One question is uniform. How do I deal with this? Teen wants to express themselves but get told off when they dress with confidence, but not entirely within the rules. What are your reflections for the teen teacher dynamic? So often I find uniform power struggles are about lots of different things, and I'm intrigued about what it is for this kid, because sometimes the uniform thing is about a kid feeling unconfident in their body and trying to look nice and trying to look in a way that they want to look, and it becomes about stress of feeling like if I just wore the uniform normal, then fill in the blank. And I'm always intrigued about that if you just don't like it, then yeah, I know it's terrible. There's lots of things in life that will just be awful, and you run the risk when you do it, and sometimes it's just letting the power struggle happen because it's important to them. But my question is, what's underneath the power struggle? Is it about them wanting to stand up for something and feeling like they want to express themselves in a power dynamic? Is it about a self-confidence issue about a body and feeling like I want to hide my hips or I want to cover something? And therefore I understand that, and you begin to understand. So my question is, start with questions like, what would happen if you just wore it normal? Like, why? What would inside happen to you? And sometimes it's that they just feel oppressed by the man, oppressed by this world. And you'll be like, I understand that. And that, how do you do with that? Because at your job you sometimes feel like that too, and there's little ways of dealing with it and big ways of dealing with it. And what is the dynamic that they're feeling can be really interesting. Sometimes it's about a specific teacher. I find that very interesting because that's a great opportunity to disciple about future work. And so sometimes there will be a teacher that really, really gets under your nerves as a teenager, and you don't know why. And sometimes we want to slam in with, authority and support authority and stuff, but it's fascinating to go, what really bugs you about that teacher? And sometimes you'll find that this teacher is unfair, or the teacher is unjust, or you feel like the teacher, that your child doesn't feel like the teacher applies things fairly, and they're dealing with a deep sense of injustice, and the only way that they have to fight against that is uniform. And then you can talk about what it's like to have unfair coaches or unfair teachers and what you do, and unfair bosses, and then you're in a fascinating discussion about how you use your power and what it's like to be in that. And I know, I mean, as a teenager I refused to wear white socks for PE because I felt like it was a ridiculous rule. And so I deliberately only wore black socks. And it was like my little rebellion. And I took the consequences for it and did my detentions for it and was very proud about it. And, actually made me feel great. And they're experimenting for me. They're experimenting with power. They're experimenting with self-expression. They're experimenting with how you operate in a world of authority and rules. And we get to come alongside them and say, what does this make you feel, and what does that make you do, and what is you're playing with it, you're figuring it out, and you may discover something really beautiful about your kid, about how they view others, how they view themselves, how they view what they value, that they would rather value self-expression than conformity. What is that all about? Where does that come from? It's intriguing, isn't it? And when you're intrigued by your kid and you're saying, help me understand, because I really genuinely just want to understand, and then say, I understand that instinct. I'm interested to see how that works out for you. You're letting them, on little things, experience where that confidence comes from. Does that make sense? Sorry. Right. Oh, more questions came in while we were talking about that. How do you help your kid deal with the lies that are aimed at them that come from other kids in the church? That can be really hard when there are lies coming from any direction. When they're coming from church kids, that feels almost more painful, because you're like, the church is the place where our kids are supposed to feel safe. Um, One, I would suggest it starts a really interesting conversation about the safety of church, because often we don't have that conversation with teenagers that say the church is filled with imperfect people who are on the journey, and you're never going to find a church with people who are all at a stage of maturity and development that are all just going to be affirming and happy and wonderful. We're all on the journey of becoming more like Jesus, some more than others at this point, and that's just part of knowing that church is going to have people in it who are like that. And it's really sad, and I'm sorry that that's happening to you, and to just be honest about that, because often what can do is push teenagers away from the church, because the church should be filled with only people who are going to do really kind things all the time, and then they go hypocrites and they walk away from, they begin to think, oh, God isn't real because their followers aren't real, and their followers are imperfect too. And that's a really helpful conversation to have with your kids. um, but also, it's really helpful to start talking about lies that are aimed at you, and that people use the words for all sorts of manipulations, and using the word manipulation can be really good and helpful. You can watch TV shows that have people who try to manipulate each other all the time, and you can talk about, like, that's a lie that is designed to manipulate somebody. And I find it interesting because they lied about someone, and that person is spending all their time dealing with that lie. And I don't want to be the person who's only ever thinking about other people's lies. And so how do we find the truth about it quickly? And so someone aims a lie at you, or says something to you, the first thing you do is go, is that the truth or is that the lie? And you take it to God, and you take it to me or your friends and go, I need to know if this is a lie or this is truth. What bit is truth? What's bit a lie? Anything that's a lie gets kicked out. Truth gets to stand, and you decide what you do with it. And that's a process of life, and this is how I deal with it. This is how my friends deal with it, and you begin to model what it looks like. But nothing that's a lie gets to stick to you, because you could spend your whole life trying to fight under the weight of lies, and so you don't even let it stick to you. You just decide it. Nope, I don't even get to take that in. And that's a really hard thing, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to walk alongside you to help you identify those lies when you get stuck, because there are times where you're like, is that the truth or the lie? And it could take days of your life away. Don't take days of your life. Grab it, talk to God about it, talk to me about it, then we can decide what to do with it. And you help them find the process of that. And then, to understand that people want to manipulate you for lots of reasons. And you don't get to control other people. You do get to control what you do with it. You get to control your own thoughts. And that's something you can do. And so we're going to get better at it. And so you can practice that at home, about when they tell lies about themselves. Teenagers do this all the time. I'm terrible at maths. Or I suck at this. And to say, like, actually, I'm not okay with anybody lying about you, including you. So I just need to flag that up, that that's a lie. And sometimes it could just be that you have a lie-free house about yourself and about each other, and just be like, actually, I don't think that's fully true. You're not, that thing that that thing that you do is that doesn't mean you're a super lazy kid. It means that you chose laziness this one time. That's all. Let's not make it into a lie. And you begin to live that rigor with yourself, with your kid, and you begin to create that so that they know those next steps. Does that help? I hope it helps. More in point 3, discovering exercising power in their lives. Yes. Um, Power is so important for them to know how to use power, how to feel helpless and identify when they're feeling helpless. And so sometimes they're helpless when somebody's bullying their friend. And most of the times they're feeling helpless is because they don't know what to do. We assume so much about teenagers that they know what to do in response to things, and often they don't. And so we actually need to have more detailed conversations with kids. And so sometimes it's watching television and going, okay, pause, hold on for a second, hold on. Right. So a guy just broke into their house and they've chosen to run around screaming instead of somebody calling 999. Why did they choose to do that? And then we could talk about sometimes when you're afraid, your brain turns off. And so the first thing you do, and so sometimes it's just about naming things or mocking television where people are making bad mistakes or telling stories of your life about what you do in those circumstances. But other times it's about asking the same question, oh no, what are you going to do about it? And often we don't ask kids, what are you going to do about it? So they're going, oh, I'm feeling awful. This is really happening. I'm so frustrated that this is happening at school and they're taking away the arts and I don't want to take away the arts and I'm just angry that it's happening. And you listen, you say, oh, that sounds awful. That does sound terrible. You know, you listen, you understand. You say, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, well, there's nothing I can do. And you say, well, there's always something you can do about it. You know, what do you think you can do about it? And you expect them to be powerful. Can be a really helpful thing to ask them. What are you going to do? I can give you ideas if you're stuck, but I think your brain's brilliant and you know better than I do what the possibilities are. And you can help them find those things, but you can also help them see where they're already powerful. So many times they don't realize that their words are powerful. Like when you're down and your kid comes up and just says, you know, I really like your cooking or something. It's really helpful to just say, hold on. I don't know if you know, but like your words are really significant to me. And when you encourage me, it makes me really happy. Thank you for your words. Your words are really powerful. And just leave it like that. Because they're like, what? You'll notice that as soon as you start showing them where their power is, they will want to use that power more. So whether it's the power of their words, whether it's the power of their presence, thank you so much for being here. Just coming with me shopping. It just makes me happy. I really like being around you. It makes me happy to like have someone to do even boring stuff with. You'll notice them volunteering to do it more with you, but also volunteering to do it with the people who need friends, and show them where their power already is, and show them that you expect them to always be powerful in a situation. And then sometimes it is just out and out equipping them to be like, right, just so you know, if you're ever at a party and somebody starts vomiting or passes out because of alcohol, science tells us it's this and this and this. Put them in the recovery position, call for help, and call me because I'm here. Like sometimes they just need like little equipping. They'll roll their eyes at you, but I'll tell you what, when they face that situation, they'll have scaffolding for it. They will have a framework for it that they can step into. And so, you know, give them those things because it's really, really important. Because there's something about feeling equipped and powerful in every situation that radically changes their anxiety levels and their confidence levels. Discussions around the punitive nature of schools and how to talk about grace for mistakes and not feeling anxious about getting it wrong all the time. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Schools sometimes have such a high standard and not a lot of grace. And so I find it really helpful with teenagers to be able to talk about with them, saying, you know, there will be lots of environments you're in that will set standards for what they think achievement is. And actually, it's up to you and me in this scenario to say, do I want to accept that culture? Is that a culture I agree with? Is that a culture I want to operate in? And if not, how do I find my values in this space? And so you can say, actually, I don't expect you to be perfect, and you will make mistakes. And in this environment, there might be consequences for that. But I'm not going to get mad if you choose more sleep or more peace, or you choose to value your friendship and help your friend out, which means you don't do homework tomorrow. I'm here to help you figure out how to live wisely in culture. And you'll make mistakes, you won't make mistakes, and that's okay. It's for us as a family to decide. what we think is good to partner with and not. So let's talk about that. What do you think is right about school? What do you think is wrong about school? What do we need to conform to? What do we actually can decide amongst ourselves that this is good? And just because someone else says that's good, that doesn't mean that. Let's talk about that, because you will spend a lifetime, kid, in places that try to tell you how to behave and how to do it. And that's why people burn out, and that's why people pour out themselves too much in an unhealthy way. Our job is to find a healthy way for your personality with your culture and your values in this. So let's talk about it. It's quite a big thing to do as a teenager, to say, you know, how do we want to be? And that it's a quite an adult conversation, and I think you're ready for it. And that can be a really empowering thing to then talk about that, to say that, you know, if you're finding yourself feeling anxious because of external expectations, then we need to figure out tools for how we reduce our anxiety and whether or not those outside expectations are wise. So let's talk about it, and we begin to really begin to drill into that. It's these beautiful gifts we can give our teenagers, and great opportunities that we get to do it now rather than in their first job when they're 20 and don't live with us anymore, or they may be living with you in this world. Last question. How would you advise us to deal with the pressure and anxiety regarding, excuse me, not COVID, regarding GCSEs, exams, performance related worry? I would suggest when you have GCSEs, what they do sometimes is they feel like their entire future is weighing on these exams. And therefore their self-worth is on these exams, and their entire future is on these exams, and it can feel so weighted on this, and therefore they feel like they have to perform, because your happiness, their teacher's happiness, and their entire future is based on this. And so some of it is starting early and saying, you know, this is one little step in a very long life. And there are people who, you know, there are people who God will work all different paths. Scripture says God will work all things together for good for those who love the Lord. And so what I'm looking for is not that you're going to get all A's. What I'm looking for is that you're healthily studying, that you're working hard, that you are showing me that you can balance really well your emotions and your schoolwork. What I'm looking for is that you care about your family and that you spend time with us. I'm looking for how many times you laugh in a day, because that's important too. And I'm looking for you to progress in your work, so that when you take your mocks, that I see you learning from that and growing from that. I'm looking for progress, not perfection. And you know what? Whatever those grades come out to be, then that's what they come out to be. And if you're really disappointed in it, I don't know, we can look at trying it again, or we can just say, huh, that's interesting. Now let's look on to A levels, and then past that vocation and all of that stuff. There's always a next step. This is not the end. This is always just the next hump to do it. And this is how I'm looking for you to do it. And then we'll see what happens then. But don't, if you're working in anxiety for 2 years, that would make me so sad. What I want to see is you feeling more and more like you are able and capable and growing in something. And this is what I'm looking for. And this is how you cope with it when someone tells you you should be better. And so we're just going along that thing and helping them find truths in that, and finding what God's expectations are. Does God expect you to get A's? Probably not. What do you think he expects? That you walk humbly, that you love mercy, that you're kind to people. Like, you know, there's more to life than this test. So what are we looking for? And who do we want to be in this? And then we disciple them in that. I hope that makes sense. You may like it, you may not like it. Feel free to throw it away. But there's something really empowering about helping them see the wider picture, to learn the coping skills of that anxiety, of grabbing onto truth, of creating a set list. Like for me, when I deal with like anxiety and performance, I have a worship set list that is just for when I'm feeling like it's all about me. And I do that. And so I tell teenagers that I work with, I have my set list of when I get in my head. And then they're like, oh, that's a good idea. So then they get a set list for them. And so this is where all your tools of creating windows and framing and coming alongside of them, you really creak to help all of these parenting for faith skills come really helpful in this, because you're showing them how to cope with all of these big things. Right, so I'm going to pray for you. Also, don't forget, there is a Parenting for Faith course. It's my post-it note. A Parenting for Faith course coming up starting in September 26th. If you want to come as a group of teen parents to that and be able to talk amongst yourselves in a group, you can do that. You can come as an individual. If you want to explore more confidence and ideas about confidence, there's this book called Parenting Children for a Life of Confidence that has now gotten absorbed into the Parenting Children for Life of Faith omnibus. So they took 3 of my books and put them into one. So if you want to read Parenting Children for Life of Confidence, that talks about social media and peer pressure and failure and comparison, all of that is in the omnibus version. Right, let me pray for you. God, I thank you so much for the real privilege of getting to walk alongside our teenagers in these difficult circumstances, that we may help them find their feet and grow in resilience, to find you in it and how to walk with you in it, to learn how to learn those adult skills of being in the world but not of the world, of having to deal with those big emotions and yet continue walking forward in the power that you have given us, alongside the God who is our companion. So we love you, God, and I pray that you would hold our teenagers so closely, that that your voice would be the main voice they hear in their lives, and that they would know your presence every day. And I pray for all of us parents that you would reduce our anxiety, sweep off our deep burden of feeling like if we don't do it right in this moment, that we'll never get another chance, Lord, but that you would give us the grace to know that you are the father of our children, and that you are the perfect parent, and you will teach us every step of the way as we continue to learn how to be parents, as our kids continue to grow. In Jesus' name, amen. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions and your wisdom and your kindness in the conversations. And I think there'll be another one of these next month, so continue to tie in. Bless you. Bye.